The smell of disinfectant filled the air, blending with the scent of medication and despair. Olivia Mason, once one of the wealthiest and most envied women in New York, now found herself confined within the stark white walls of Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, now wandered aimlessly around the room while her hands trembled incessantly, a side effect of the medication she was forced to take. Just 6 months ago, Olivia had been living a life of luxury and prestige. Heir to a pharmaceutical empire, she was known not only for her wealth but also for her philanthropy. Her life seemed perfect alongside her husband, the charming and ambitious plastic surgeon Dr. Marcus Blackwell. But perfection, as Olivia would learn in the most brutal way possible, was nothing more than a facade. It all began to unravel on the night of a charity gala. Olivia, stunning in her couture gown, noticed something odd about Marcus's behavior. He seemed distant, nervous, constantly checking his phone. Then she saw it, the lingering glances he exchanged with Veronica, his longtime personal assistant. In that moment, something inside Olivia shattered. In the days that followed, she began to investigate. She uncovered suspicious bank transactions, incriminating emails, hotel reservations. The truth was undeniable. Marcus and Veronica had been having an affair for months. But there was something even more sinister. Marcus wasn't just betraying Olivia emotionally. He was systematically draining her bank accounts, transferring millions to offshore accounts. When confronted, Marcus denied everything. But when Olivia threatened to expose him, things took a terrifying turn. One night, after a heated argument, Olivia woke up in a strange room, surrounded by nurses. Marcus, with his smooth and persuasive doctor's voice, explained to a team of psychiatrists that his wife was suffering from a mental breakdown, fabricating paranoid stories about infidelity and theft. Using his influence in the medical field and presenting fabricated evidence of Olivia's erratic behavior, Marcus managed to have her involuntarily committed. Day after day, Olivia screamed the truth, but the more she protested, the more delusional she seemed in the eyes of the medical staff. Meanwhile, Marcus, with Veronica's help, emptied Olivia's accounts, sold her properties and transferred everything overseas. The empire she had inherited from her family was being dismantled before her eyes, and she was powerless to stop. Weeks turned into months. Olivia, once vibrant and confident, was now a shadow of herself. The medication left her lethargic, confused. She started to doubt her own memories. Had she really gone mad? Had she imagined it all? But then, on a rainy autumn afternoon, something changed. A new nurse, Sarah, started working at the hospital. Unlike the others, Sarah listened to Olivia. She noticed inconsistencies in Marcus's story, small details that didn't add up. Sarah began investigating quietly. She discovered that Marcus had made substantial donations to the hospital, explaining why no one questioned Olivia's commitment. She also found records of frequent visits from Veronica, always when Olivia was sedated. The nurse knew she was risking her job, maybe even her license, but she couldn't ignore the injustice she saw. One night, after everyone had left, Sarah slipped into Olivia's room. "Mrs. Mason," she whispered, waking Olivia from her drug-induced sleep. "I believe you, and I'm going to help you get out of here." Olivia's eyes widened, a spark of hope shining in them for the first time in months. She grasped Sarah's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Please," Olivia pleaded, her voice raw from crying, "help me take my life back and make Marcus pay for what he did." Sarah nodded, determination in her eyes. "We'll do this together," she promised, "but we have to be careful. Marcus is powerful and dangerous." At that moment, as the rain pounded against the hospital windows, a plan began to take shape. Olivia knew it wouldn't be easy. She was weak, medicated and isolated, but now she had something she hadn't had in months: hope. And with that hope came a fierce determination. Marcus had stolen her freedom, her dignity, and her fortune, but he had made one fatal mistake. He had underestimated her. Olivia vowed that she would make Marcus pay for every moment of torment she had suffered in that hospital. Revenge would be sweet, and she would savor every last drop. The days that followed were an exercise in patience and strategy. Sarah risking everything became Olivia's eyes and ears in the outside world. She brought back valuable information, hidden in the folds of clean sheets or whispered during routine checkups. Marcus and Veronica had moved into a lavish mansion in Malibu, shamelessly flaunting their newfound wealth. They were planning an extravagant wedding, as if they wanted to rub their triumphant love in the world's face. Each new detail was like a dagger to Olivia's heart, but it also fueled her determination. She knew she had to be patient, to pretend she was gradually improving so as not to raise suspicion. During the day, she played the part of the docile, recovering patient, obediently swallowing the pills she was given. But at night, when everyone slept, she hid them under her mattress, slowly cleansing her system and regaining her mental clarity. Sarah, meanwhile, used her contacts outside the hospital to gather evidence. She gained access to bank records, incriminating emails, and even recordings of damning conversations between Marcus and Veronica. It was a dangerous game. If they were caught, Sarah would lose her job and her license, and Olivia could be transferred to a maximum security facility, burying any hope of freedom forever. Weeks turned into months, and Olivia's plan began to take shape. She knew that simply exposing Marcus and Veronica wouldn't be enough. They were wealthy and influential now, capable of escaping with nothing more than a fine or a light sentence. No, Olivia wanted more than justice. She wanted revenge. She wanted them to feel the same despair, the same helplessness she had endured during those long months of confinement. With Sarah's help, she reached out to old allies who still believed in her. One of them was Jack Donovan, a private investigator who had worked for the Mason family in the past. Initially skeptical, Jack was horrified when he uncovered the truth about Olivia's situation. He vowed to help her, using his underworld connections to gather even more evidence against Marcus and Veronica. Another crucial ally was Amanda Chen, a brilliant attorney whom Olivia had helped early in her career. Amanda was more than willing to return the favor, working tirelessly behind the scenes to build a solid case against Marcus and lay the groundwork for Olivia's release. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Olivia continued her meticulous act. She participated in therapy sessions with feigned enthusiasm, spoke about accepting reality and overcoming her delusions. The doctors, impressed by her progress, began reducing her medication. Little did they know that every skipped pill, every moment of regained clarity, was a weapon Olivia was sharpening for her vengeance. At night, when the hospital was silent, she and Sarah met in dark corners, whispering plans and strategies. It was during one of these clandestine meetings that Olivia had an epiphany. She didn't just want to reclaim what was hers, or see Marcus and Veronica behind bars. No, she wanted them to experience the hell she had lived through. "Sarah," she whispered, her eyes glinting with a mix of determination and something darker. "When we get out of here, we're not just going to expose them. We're going to destroy them. We're going to make them wish they had never crossed my path." Sarah, seeing the intensity in Olivia's gaze, felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she was witnessing the birth of something powerful and potentially dangerous. But she also knew there was no turning back now. They were in this together, for better or for worse. Spring arrived in New York, bringing with it not only the blooming of flowers in the city's parks, but also the blossoming of Olivia's meticulous plan. After months of careful preparation, the day of her reassessment hearing had finally come. Olivia, now a master of deception, walked into the hospital's conference room with a serene smile and clear eyes, the picture of restored sanity. Before a panel of psychiatrists, she spoke eloquently about her recovery journey, admitting with apparent sincerity that her accusations against Marcus had been the product of a temporary mental breakdown. She expressed remorse for having doubted her beloved husband and voiced her desire to reconcile and rebuild her life. The doctors, impressed by her lucidity and insight, exchanged approving glances. After a brief deliberation, they unanimously agreed to recommend her release. Olivia could barely contain her exhilaration as she signed the discharge papers, knowing that each signature brought her one step closer to her long-awaited revenge. As she stepped out of the hospital, Olivia was greeted by Amanda Chen, her attorney, who escorted her to a waiting car. As they drove through Manhattan's bustling streets, Olivia felt a dizzying mix of emotions: relief at her newfound freedom, anticipation for what was to come, and a cold fury pulsing through her veins. Amanda updated her on the developments of the past few months. Jack Donovan had gathered a mountain of incriminating evidence against Marcus and Veronica, including damning recordings, falsified financial records, and even emails detailing their plan to have Olivia committed. With this evidence in hand, they were ready to initiate a devastating legal case. But Olivia had other plans. "No," she said, her voice cold and unwavering. "The legal system is too generous to people like them. I want them to feel the same despair, the same helplessness that I did. I want them to lose everything, just like I did." Amanda, taken aback by Olivia's intensity, tried to argue for a more conventional approach, but she quickly realized it was useless. The woman sitting beside her was no longer the kind-hearted philanthropist she had known years ago. In her place was a force of nature, shaped by betrayal, hardened by abandonment. In the days that followed, Olivia threw herself into a frenzy of activity. Using the contacts and resources Sarah and Jack had gathered during her confinement, she began weaving an intricate web around Marcus and Veronica. First, she strategically leaked information to the press about Marcus's questionable practices as a plastic surgeon, including carefully documented cases of medical negligence. Within days, the professional reputation he had spent years building began to crumble. At the same time, Olivia used her connections in the financial world to quietly launch an investigation into Marcus's offshore transactions, alerting tax authorities to potential fraud. Meanwhile, she orchestrated a subtle yet relentless smear campaign against Veronica, exposing her past as a low-level con artist and hinting that she had been manipulating Marcus from the very beginning. With each passing day, the walls closed in tighter around the couple. They could feel the ground shaking beneath them, and Olivia watched it all from a distance, a cold smile playing on her lips as she saw her plan unfold with surgical precision. She knew she was crossing moral, perhaps even legal, lines, but the thirst for revenge was stronger than any lingering scruples. To her, this wasn't just about reclaiming what was hers. It was about delivering justice with her own hands. It was about resetting the balance that had been unjustly tipped against her for far too long. New York's scorching summer brought with it a suffocating heatwave, but for Marcus and Veronica, the real hell was only just beginning. The meticulously woven web that Olivia had spun was closing in at a dizzying speed. Acting on the anonymous tips she had provided, tax authorities raided Marcus's office on a Wednesday morning, seizing computers and documents. At the same time, the medical board announced a full-scale investigation into his practices, suspending his medical license while the case unfolded. The couple's bank accounts were frozen, with money laundering suspicions hanging over every transaction. Within days, the empire they had built with Olivia's stolen wealth began to crumble like a sandcastle swept away by the tide. Sensing the ship was sinking, Veronica attempted to flee with what remained of their funds, only to be detained at the airport, thanks to an anonymous tip about drug trafficking. Another carefully placed piece on Olivia's chessboard. Like vultures circling a fresh carcass, the press descended on the scandal, exposing every sordid detail of the couple's rise and fall. Olivia watched from a distance, a glass of red wine in one hand and a tablet in the other, scrolling through the headlines with a mix of satisfaction and an insatiable hunger for more. As Marcus and Veronica's world collapsed, Olivia executed the next phase of her plan. Using her newly restored influence and the public sympathy generated by her miraculous recovery story, she launched a foundation dedicated to helping victims of medical fraud and psychiatric abuse. Every interview she gave, every speech she delivered, was a calculated dagger to the heart of Marcus's already shattered reputation. She presented herself as a survivor, a strong woman who had overcome betrayal and abuse to become an advocate. For those without a voice, the public adored her, the media idolized her, and little by little she reclaimed not only her fortune, but a power and influence she had never possessed before. Yet behind her compassionate smile and seemingly kind, Eyes an unrelenting fire burned. Every night, alone in her penthouse overlooking Central Park, Olivia planned her next move. She wasn't content with just destroying Marcus and Veronica. She wanted to erase every trace of their existence. The final downfall came on a stormy August night. Marcus, cornered and desperate, appeared at Olivia's door, drenched from the rain, his eyes bloodshot. "Please," he begged, his voice raw. "You've won. I'm ruined, destroyed. What more do you want from me?" Olivia stared at him, her face an unreadable mask, barely concealing the storm of emotions underneath. For a fleeting moment she felt a pang of something, pity, remorse, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. "What I want, Marcus," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "is for you to feel exactly what I felt. Helplessness, despair, the realization that your life is no longer your own." With a smooth motion, she pressed a button on her phone. Immediately, sirens blared in the streets below. "Remember how you had me committed?" she murmured, stepping closer. "Well, let's just say I returned the favor. There's a psychiatric team on their way to pick up a dangerous and delusional patient who threatened a respected citizen." Marcus's eyes widened in dawning horror. As he turned to run, security guards emerged from the shadows, restraining him with practiced efficiency. Olivia leaned in, her lips almost brushing his ear. "Enjoy your stay, darling. I hope it's as enlightening as mine was." As Marcus was dragged away, kicking and screaming, Olivia stood in the doorway, the rain mingling with the silent tears she finally allowed to fall. She had won. She had her revenge. But as the sound of sirens faded into the night, one question echoed in her mind. At what cost? Autumn arrived in New York, painting Central Park in shades of red and gold, a striking contrast to the emptiness Olivia felt inside. Her revenge was complete, yet the satisfaction she had expected never came. Instead, a deep restlessness grew within her, fueled by sleepless nights and days filled with frantic activity that barely masked her inner turmoil. Marcus was confined to a maximum security psychiatric institution, ironically, the very same one where Olivia had endured her months of hell. Veronica, meanwhile, was serving a long sentence in federal prison, convicted of fraud and conspiracy. The empire they had stolen from Olivia had not only been reclaimed but expanded under her ruthless leadership. To the world, she was a phoenix, risen from the ashes, an inspiration to women across the country. But in moments of solitude, when the silence became deafening, Olivia wondered if the price of her vengeance had been too high. One afternoon, as she wandered through the park, lost in thought, she ran into Sarah, the nurse who had been her guardian angel during her confinement. Sarah's face, once filled with compassion and determination, was now lined with worry. "Olivia," she said gently, "we need to talk." For hours, they sat on a bench overlooking the lake, confiding in each other. Sarah admitted that she had been haunted by the role she had played in Olivia's revenge, questioning whether they had gone too far. For the first time since leaving the hospital, Olivia let her guard down. Tears that had been suppressed for far too long finally flowed freely as she admitted the emptiness she felt, the crushing weight of her actions. "I wanted them to feel my pain," Olivia sobbed, "but in the process, I think I lost a part of myself." That conversation was a turning point. In the days that followed, Olivia delved into deep introspection. She revisited every decision, every action that had led her to this moment. She remembered the woman she used to be, compassionate, generous, full of hope, and she compared her to the person she had become, cold, calculating, consumed by bitterness. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. In her quest for justice, she had become everything she once despised. With that epiphany came a decision that would shock the world. Olivia announced that she would use her fortune and influence to reform the mental health system, with a particular focus on protecting patients from abuse and wrongful institutionalization. She established a fund to help victims of financial fraud and began working closely with lawmakers to close the loopholes that had allowed Marcus to have her committed against her will. In a gesture that surprised everyone, including herself, Olivia visited Marcus at the psychiatric hospital. She found him a shadow of the arrogant man she had once known, broken by the very system he had used against her. For a moment, the old rage threatened to resurface, but it was quickly replaced by something unexpected: pity, and to her own astonishment, forgiveness. "I forgive you, Marcus," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Not for your sake, but for mine. I've carried this hatred for too long." The words felt like they were draining a poison from her soul, a poison she hadn't even realized was still there. As she walked out of the institution, Olivia felt as if an immense weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. Regaining her humanity, rebuilding her soul, this would be a greater challenge than any revenge she had ever plotted. But for the first time in years, she felt a spark of genuine hope. As she walked through the streets of New York, the autumn sun casting long shadows, Olivia made a promise to herself. Her story would not end in revenge. It would end in redemption. The years that followed were a journey of transformation, not just for Olivia, but for everyone whose lives she had touched. The Mason Foundation for Mental Health Reform and Social Justice became a powerful force, driving significant changes in both the healthcare system and the legal field. Olivia poured all her energy, intelligence, and resources into the cause, determined to turn her traumatic experience into something positive for the world. A major milestone came 3 years after her release, when Olivia testified before Congress, advocating for legislation that would become known as the Olivia Act. This law established strict safeguards against involuntary psychiatric commitments and medical abuse of power. During her powerful testimony, Olivia not only shared her own story, but also shed light on hundreds of similar cases her foundation had uncovered and supported. The impact was immediate and profound. The law passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. As her public influence grew, Olivia continued her personal journey of healing and self-discovery. Therapy, meditation, and a close circle of true friends, including Sarah, who had become her closest confidant, helped her rebuild her identity and find a balance between justice and compassion. She learned to forgive, not just Marcus and Veronica, but also herself for the excesses of her revenge. In a move that shocked many and divided public opinion, Olivia used her influence to ensure that Marcus received proper psychiatric treatment rather than pure punishment. She argued that the cycle of revenge and retribution had to be broken for true justice to take root. Veronica, after serving part of her sentence, was released on parole under the condition that she work in rehabilitation programs for former inmates, a program partially funded by the Mason Foundation. The climax of this journey of redemption came on a gala night, 5 years after Olivia's release. The Mason Foundation was celebrating the passage of a series of reforms inspired by the Olivia Act in multiple states. The grand ballroom was filled with politicians, activists, and survivors whose lives had been transformed by Olivia's work. As she stepped onto the stage to speak, a reverent silence fell over the crowd. 5 years ago, Olivia began, her voice steady, I was trapped, not just in an institution but in a prison of anger and a thirst for vengeance. I thought destroying those who hurt me would bring me peace. I was wrong. She paused, her eyes scanning the audience. True freedom came when I learned to turn my pain into purpose, my anger into positive action. Each one of you here tonight gives proof that we can create light out of darkness, hope out of despair. As Olivia continued her speech, the camera briefly focused on faces in the audience. Sarah, now the director of nursing at a progressive hospital. Jack Donovan, who had become a relentless advocate for patients' rights. Amanda Chen, now a federal judge, known for her compassion and integrity. And, surprisingly, in the back of the room, Marcus and Veronica. Separated but present, their faces a mixture of remorse and gratitude. Our journey is far from over, Olivia concluded, her voice filled with emotion. But together, we can build a world where justice does not exclude compassion, where healing replaces revenge, where every person is valued and protected. This is the true legacy I want to leave, not a story of vengeance, but a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness and the possibility of redemption for us all. As the audience rose in a thunderous standing ovation, Olivia felt a peace she had never imagined possible. She had lost so much, but gained something infinitely more valuable: the ability to turn tragedy into triumph, not just for herself, but for countless others. As the lights shone and cameras flashed, Olivia Mason smiled, no longer the cold smile of an avenger, but the serene smile of someone who had finally found her true purpose. If you think you've seen it all, just wait until you see the next video. Subscribe to the channel and get ready. You're going to be shocked. Don't forget to like the video. That simple gesture means a lot to us.